a quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
So, Mr. President, we convene after a weekend of both horror and grief. Saturday afternoon, as students were studying for finals, a masked gunman opened fire inside a classroom at Brown University. 9 students were injured, 2 were killed. The victims were not even 20 years old. This is every father and every mother's worst nightmare. For now, the shooter remains at large, and we urge residents in the area to listen to guidance from local law enforcement. Then, just a few hours later, on the first night of Hanukkah, on a popular beach in Sydney, Australia, two terrorists opened fire on Jewish Australians gathered in celebration. At least 15 were killed, another 29 injured. Among the murdered was a 10-year-old girl and an 87-year-old Holocaust survivor. Also among the murdered was Rabbi Eli Schlanger, a pillar of Brooklyn's Crown Heights community who welcomed a son to the world just 2 months ago. May the memories of all those killed and injured in this weekend be a blessing. I have warned repeatedly that anti-Semitism is a scourge around the world that must be condemned loudly and fought vigorously at every turn. The Jewish people have been collectively demonized, increasingly so in the last few years. And this tragedy in Sydney shows the danger, the abject danger, of letting anti-Semitic rhetoric and action go unchecked. So those of us in elected office have a responsibility to speak out against anti-Semitic rhetoric and conduct wherever it arises, whenever it arises. And separately, Congress must also take action against another poison of our age, that of rampant gun violence. Australia is no stranger to gun safety legislation. They famously took strong action in the 1990s and saw gun violence plummet. Yesterday, Australia's Prime Minister said the country will take another look at their gun safety laws and see where they can make improvements. If Australia can find courage to act after a tragedy like the one in Bondi Beach, Congress should certainly find the will to act after a tragedy like the one at Brown University. For the sake of those who were killed this weekend, and for the sake of so many lives we can save moving forward, Congress must again act against gun violence and act against all forms of violent hate. Now on the all senators briefing tomorrow morning. Senators tomorrow morning will attend a briefing by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the latest developments in the Caribbean, including getting to the bottom of what happened during the September 2nd boat strikes. I've been calling on Secretary Rubio to provide an all-senators briefing on these important topics since October, and I'm pleased he has finally heeded our call. I expect him and Secretary Hegseth to come tomorrow prepared to answer tough questions from senators about what exactly is going on with our forces in the territory surrounding Venezuela. The Senate also demands to see the full and unedited tape showing exactly what happened during strikes on the alleged drug boat on September the 2nd. Last week, I asked the Secretary of Defense point blank if he would provide the video of the boat strikes to every senator. A simple yes from Secretary Hegseth would have been sufficient, because frankly, asking for the tapes is not a crazy request. It's basic oversight, something senators are certainly entitled to see. It's part of our responsibility as senators. But the Secretary hedged and said he needed more time to study this issue. More time? More time to study exactly what? It's been 3 months. What the hell is there to study? What is there to study? I made this request to the Secretary a week ago, and to date, he still not has provided the access to all senators. So ahead of tomorrow's briefing, we need to be clear about one thing. Every single member is entitled to see the full, unedited video of what happened during the series of strikes on September the 2nd. Anything less than full access for every senator would be unacceptable. And if Secretary Hegseth continues to conceal the truth, then what exactly is he trying to hide? Maybe he needs more time to study what he should hide and what he shouldn't hide. That would be totally wrong, inappropriate, and dishonest. And we also need immediate answers about what on earth Donald Trump is planning to do in Venezuela. You get different answers all the time, and no clear understanding by the American people of what he's up to and what his goal is, how far he will go. Will he get us into an endless war? We have thousands of troops in our largest aircraft carrier in the Caribbean, but zero explanation for what Donald Trump is trying to accomplish. Americans do not want to get our troops ensnared in another endless war. And the risk for war will only get worse the more belligerent Donald Trump acts off the coast of South America. Just this weekend, a U.S. Air Force tanker jet had a near mid-air collision with a JetBlue Airbus flying to the United States. The Air Force tanker reportedly did not have its transponder on, of all things, and flew right through the Airbus's flight path, forcing it to climb to avoid a crash. A near miss. The near miss with this commercial flight should serve as a warning. All it takes is one accident, one moment of miscommunication with Venezuela, and things can spin out of control in an instant. That's exactly what American people do not want to see. We have seen that happen in the past. That one incident can lead to an endless war. So tomorrow, Secretaries Rubio and Hegseth owe senators some pretty big answers to some very important questions about what is happening in the Caribbean, what are their goals, what are their plans, what are their limits. Anything less than full transparency and candor from the two secretaries will be unacceptable to the Senate and to the American people. Now on my 62-county tour and the costs of health care. Well, today's a special day for me as I completed my annual 62-county tour. Every year I visit every one of New York's 62 counties, and today's 62nd county was Columbia County with a visit to the Ooms Dairy Farm in Columbia County. When I first ran for the Senate, I promised New Yorkers I'd visit every single county at least once a year, and I've kept that promise up for 27 years. This is the 27th year I've had that tour. I love it today just as much as I loved it then. You learn so much. You see people face to face, sitting behind a desk, just answering the phone. That doesn't suffice if you want to be a good senator. You have to get out there, meet people, shake hands, hear about their concerns, hear about their anguish, hear about their happiness and joys. And that's what I do in every county. And New York's a tremendously diverse state. We have one of the largest rural populations in America. Our upstate cities are like Midwestern cities, and of course we have New York City and its suburbs, the largest metropolis in the country. So I get to see and learn everything. I consider what I do, visiting each county, a work requirement. I can't do my job if I don't talk to New Yorkers face to face and see firsthand what's going on with them every single day. Now I have to say this, Mr. President. This year's 62 county was somewhat different than the ones in the past. This year, I've heard from New Yorkers in every corner of the state, in every profession and every age, every race, creed, color, gender, preference, about the rising cost of living. It was a universal chorus of complaint that our country is not doing enough about the cost of living. Every county I visited, all 62, had the same story. People are struggling to pay for the things they need. Some of their worst moments are simply sitting around the dinner table after Friday evening dinner and saying, how are we going to pay this bill? Maybe we should pay this one, not that one. Do without this, do without that. And for families with children, it's particularly hard when their kids need things that will be good for them and they can't afford them. Here are some instances. I met so many. A man named Thomas, the owner of a beautiful brewery, 1812 Brewery in Watertown, New York, on the shores of Lake Ontario, where the War of 1812 was fought. His beer was taken off the shelves in Canada because of Donald Trump's stupidity in name-calling the Canadians. In northern New York, we've had a great border, a peaceful, wonderful, prosperous border between Canada and New York. Trump just about destroyed it in a minute with some jerky comment that he always typically makes. Well, Thomas's costs have gone up in his brewery, in addition to the anger of the Canadians not buying his beer. Tariffs have made it more expensive for him to both can his beer and buy the grain he needs to brew his beautiful product. And I met scores of business people like Thomas, some of whom had gone out of business, a chocolatier who just loved making our chocolates but could no longer afford it, had to fire the people who had worked so hard in her company. I met with another New Yorker, a man named Jeremy. He lives in the Hudson Valley in Kingston, New York, who relies on the ACA tax credits to pay for health insurance. As his tax credits expire, Jeremy is going to pay more than double, nearly $1,000 every single month is what he's going to have to pay. And that's not an expense he can deal with, or people like him can deal with. He makes a good salary. He's a hardworking guy. But he can't afford such a dramatic jump in the price of his health care insurance. And it's the kind of force that Jeremy paid, I heard over and over and over and over again. What do? Sign up for health care you can't afford? Or go uninsured? Go broke or go uninsured? What a terrible choice that our Republican colleagues are forcing people like Jeremy and thousands of other New Yorkers to make. And finally, I met a woman named Roberta, who lives in Wyoming County. It's one of our big dairy counties, by the way. She told me she relies on SNAP benefits to put food on the table. I took a picture with her. I think she had 6 of her 7 beautiful children there, many of them redheads like their mom. She told me that now with rising grocery prices and budget cuts to SNAP, she can't put food on the table for all of her 7 kids. She's living on the edge. What a horrible story to hear. Can you imagine those beautiful red-headed kids? And they have to decide who's going to get the eggs, who's going to get the vegetable, because she doesn't have enough money, and SNAP doesn't give her the food she needs to feed her family. So, here's what I'd say to you, Donald Trump. You serious about focusing on affordability? Come take a road trip with me through upstate New York so you can see what a disaster your policies have been. The stories are the same everywhere I went. Under Donald Trump, costs are up, financial security is down, people are having such a tough time affording the things they very much need, not luxuries, not frivolities, things they need. Food, medicine, got to fix the car that just broke down, which you need to get to work and you don't have the money to do it. Over and over and over again. And of course, the tip of the spear in these higher costs is becoming health care. Nowhere do costs matter more. In no place have they accelerated more greatly than with health care. Last week, the Senate had one last chance to halt the imminent spike in people's health care costs by supporting our legislation to extend the ACA premiums by 3 years, the ACA tax credits by 3 years. But Republicans blew it by voting our bill down, and now they have all but guaranteed that millions of people, including countless New Yorkers, will see their premiums go up. In fact, sadly, today is the last day for Americans to sign up for January marketplace coverage. And over the next 2 weeks during this holiday, this Christmas season and Hanukkah season, millions of people will see their skyrocketing premium amounts deducted from their bank account, wondering how they're going to make the numbers work, how they're going to balance their own books. That's shameful, shameful. The number one thing I heard this year during my 62-county tour is that people are worried about paying for the things they need, health care, above all. Donald Trump and Republicans, meanwhile, have intentionally sent people's costs up and up and up. The idea of reducing costs on day one, which Donald Trump promised in the campaign, and many people voted for him because of that promise, is out the window. No one's even paying any attention to it. Or Donald Trump really is not paying attention to it. People don't believe it anymore. They don't believe any of the promises that Donald Trump has made. Donald Trump has broken faith with the very same people he promised to fight for. And I have felt that frustration through my 62-county tour this year. If Donald Trump and Republicans stay the course, the frustration people feel right now is probably only the beginning. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Yeah, Democratic Whip.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that Aaron Kevorkian, a detailee to the Senate Judiciary Committee, be granted floor privileges for the remainder of the 119th Congress.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, in Skokie, Illinois, a few miles north of Chicago, is America's second largest Holocaust museum. Those who visit see thousands of artifacts from victims and survivors and their families. And there's one lesson that every visitor takes away. All who walk through its doors learn the importance of tolerance, the need to choose love over hate. I've been reflecting on this lesson in the wake of two awful acts of violence that took place this past weekend. On Sunday night in Australia, hundreds of people gathered at Bondi Beach to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah. Two men opened fire on the crowd. The attendees at Bondi Beach were targeted simply for one reason. They were Jewish, and they were out to celebrate their faith. At least 15 people were killed, dozens more were injured. I'm offering my prayers for the victims and their families. I'm thankful for the heroic actions of both first responders and civilians to end that gunman's rampage. This act of horrific violence is a grim reminder that we cannot stop combating anti-Semitism. This tragedy occurred just hours after Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, here in the United States, experienced its own mass shooting. In the aftermath of these two tragedies, I am in awe of the bravery and sacrifice displayed by those caught up in the attacks. One of them, Ahmed al-Ahmed, tackled one of the shooters at Bondi Beach in Australia, saving countless lives. He's now going through surgery, and I wish him a swift and full recovery. Another, Spencer Yang, after being shot in the leg at the beach, continued to help one of his fellow students at Brown hide from the gunman. To Spencer, too, I wish full and swift recovery. Ahmed, Spencer, and countless others should never be put in these unimaginable situations. And yet their selfless acts in the face of such violence are the ultimate demonstration of love. a willingness to risk their own lives to save a stranger. As we seek to address the scourge of anti-Semitism and gun violence, may we act in the path of these brave bystanders who in crisis chose humanity and love over violence and hate. And Mr. President, in an unrelated matter, America's health system is in a critical condition. In 17 days, 22 million Americans will be asked to pay double or triple their current health insurance premium. Rural hospitals will be facing closure. Small businesses won't be able to cover expenses. And more than 4 million Americans will lose their insurance if we fail to do anything in Congress. Last Thursday, Senate Democrats put forward a bill to prevent this catastrophe. Our bill would have provided a clean extension of the Affordable Care Act's enhanced premium tax credits, which 22 million Americans rely on to help them pay their insurance premiums. These credits expire at the end of this year, but too many Senate Republicans voted against extending them. They instead rushed to vote on a partisan proposal that would upend the Affordable Care Act and the American healthcare system less than a month before insurance premiums spike. Their bill was introduced last week, has never been debated in committee, and no member had a chance to amend it. I say this to my friends on the other side of the aisle. You are in the majority. You have the power to set matters for congressional hearing. You have the power to go through a serious process to reform health care. You are in the majority. But first, we need triage. First, we have to stabilize the patient. Americans who are about to pay thousands of additional dollars cannot wait as Republicans attempt to change the entire health care system in a week. 4 Senate Republicans understood this and voted with all the Democrats to extend these tax credits. I thank them for their singular political courage. Each additional day we delay an extension of the enhanced premium tax credits, more Americans forego their health insurance because it's just too darned expensive. Time is running out. I recently spoke to a waitress at Lou Mitchell's restaurant in Chicago, downtown Chicago, across from the train station. She is personally worried that she'll not be able to afford her health care next year without the enhanced premium tax credits. She sees her health insurance bill doubling or more. This waitress does not care about who's winning the political fight in Washington. She cares about whether her and her family can pay for their doctor's appointments and medications. I want to go back to that restaurant soon and tell my friend that the Senate did something to help her. We can help her so long as we act on a bipartisan basis. If you don't like our proposal for a clean 3-year extension, counter with a reasonable offer. Show that there's a beating heart that cares to address the real problems Americans face. Let us come together and give American families the gift of health coverage they can afford for Christmas. Mr. President, I also want to draw attention to the crisis surrounding medical research in this country, created entirely by this new Trump administration. 10 years ago, I met with Dr. Francis Collins, then the director of the National Institutes of Health, the world's premier biomedical research agency. I admired his work so much, I asked him what I could do to help. He said, if you can provide a 5% increase to NIH medical research budget year after year, we'll light up the scoreboard. So I took that message and went back to Congress. With the help of colleagues on both sides of the aisle, Republican Senator Roy Blunt, Republican Senator Lamar Alexander, Democratic Senator Patty Murray, we increased NIH funding from $30 billion to $48 billion over the next 10 years. A 60% increase in research, a 60% increase in cures, hopes, and breakthroughs. But what took us 10 years to build, President Donald Trump has all but dismantled in less than 11 months. Recent reporting from the New York Times shed light on the dire consequences of President Trump's medical research cuts. The president and DOJ instituted a new set of rules on NIH that resulted in 3,500 fewer medical research grants, affecting virtually every area of medical study. Funding for mental health was reduced 31%. Brain diseases, 26%. Cancer research, 19%. All of these reductions are in real areas of opportunity, which we are walking away from under Trump. This is a fundamental blow to how America supports medical research, and it has real implications for the progress we've made. Instead of ushering in the next wave of medical breakthroughs, which could save you or your loved one from suffering, this administration has cut them off at the knees. I'm pleased the Senate Appropriations Committee, on a bipartisan basis, rejected Trump's proposed cuts and actually provided an increase for next year. But if the administration ignores Congress's wish and continues to upend research funding, it could create irreparable harm. As the father of a child born with severe medical condition, I know personally that families across this country depend on the hope and promise that research holds. Cures and treatments come from the National Institutes of Health, which funded the research behind 99% of the new drugs approved by the FDA in the last decade. Oh, sure, you see the ads on television for all these new drugs that they say may hold out some promise. The pharmaceutical companies are selling them and developing, but virtually all of them started with federal research by the taxpayers of this country, the same research that's being cut off now by President Trump. So when Donald Trump handicaps NIH works, he's telling patients, your cure can wait. Our communities will feel the pain of this change too. Our universities, not just in blue states, but in every state, great research institutions in Alabama, Kansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, will be unable to pursue more cures. Our hospitals, already scaling back operation thanks to budget cuts and the president's so-called big beautiful budget bill, will be forced to diminish services even more. The scientists and doctors of tomorrow may decide to forego the profession entirely or bring their talents to other countries. As we fight to protect health care for millions of Americans, let us also not forget to fight for the research that fuels that care. We cannot stand for this assault on medical research funding. We need to continue to work on a bipartisan basis to make sure the funding does continue. It is not just a matter of national pride. It's a matter of finding cures and drugs that will help people all around the world. That has defined America for decades. We can't let the Trump administration kill off medical research and kill off that dream that people keep alive every single day. Mr. President, I yield the floor.